Hey everybody, welcome to the Patty G Show. I'm your host, Patty G. We are here with Colleen Waguespack of Colleen Waguespack Interiors and Fig and Dove. We're going to learn how those work together, how she decided to just open up a store on a whim, and really get down and dirty with everything that she does in the local Baton Rouge community. But before we do that, I want to give a big, wonderful shout out to the amazing sponsors that make this show possible each and every week. Government Taco, Falaya Real Estate, Lake Men's Health Center, Horizon Financial Group, Currency Bank, and Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge. And without further ado, Colleen, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Patty.
I'm appreciative of you coming on and making time for this show at the end of Q4, which is y'all's busy time at Fig and Dove, right?
That's right.
Or y'all are gearing up for it?
We're there.
Okay.
No, we're if you ask the girls in the office, they would say, "Oh no, we're there."
You're there. It's here, and it's not stopping until January.
That's right. Actually, through January. Because
Through-
believe it
okay.
or not, you already have to be ready for the following year in January. So all of your product development, everything that you're selling, you go to market the first week of January, and then the stores have all their profit from Q4. And they know it takes almost a year to get product in. So the stores who really rely on Q4 are actually putting down a 50% deposit on the following Christmas in January.
So wait, you're going with like finished designs?
Finished designs. Never quite sure how we're going to produce them. Nor what it's going to cost us in the end. So it's definitely precarious. So
it's like you're selling like outdated stuff in
no,
December.
you have all of these concepts, and the interesting thing is,
Okay,
it's
so
great.
it's concepts only.
Well, you have samples basically, and so then you kind of say, I mean, we always look at the first and second. The first and second day are always the busiest. I mean, if
Right.
you're paid for a living to go to market and buy for a big store or a big brand, then the truth is you're going to buy in the first and second days of market. You're not going to do that on your weekends. It's your job. So the first 2 days are usually your busiest. And what we do is, as soon as we see what's selling, the other things go into the table.
So you didn't even give them the opportunity.
No, the small stores, no, absolutely not. Because for us, you can't really afford to produce, 15 different iterations of something. So this is the first year to kind of shoot to one of our products. This is the first year we actually went with a printed stocking. We've always been these classic, solid, monogrammable stockings. And then we said, okay, what about we introduce some patterns? Same cuff, they can match the solids, but let's see, how is our audience going to react to patterns? So we made some children's patterns, and then we made some sort of what we consider just sophisticated patterns that could be for any age group. And the sophisticated patterns for any age group were not selling. So then you don't want to put them into production. So this is great. You got feedback. The kids stuff was killing it. So the children's patterns, we narrowed it down to like one that was doing great in the boy category and one that was doing great in the boy category, and the rest went under the table. Now, you can bring it out later. And
If nobody's interested in who you got,
Or you get one big store that wants something that's exclusive to them, and you say, oh, okay, look, you can pick from all this. This is
look
just
at
yours.
these items that we saved specifically for
exactly.
you.
And we won't sell those to anybody else because they actually weren't interested. But
Nobody will buy them.
But there's stores that have a different. What I like about this is there's stores that have a very different look from Fig and Dove, and Fig and Dove does have a specific category that we fall into. But that's a different category from a lot of these other stores. So if you're selling tartan, we'll make you tartan stockings. I mean, that's not going to compete with them buying from Fig and Dove. So, and it gets us volume with manufacturers and stuff. So market is interesting because that's wholesale versus retail. We really make our money direct to consumer.
Okay, so for those that may not be aware, who are you and
Yeah,
what
I guess we
exactly
should
are we
back up.
talking? Let's back up a little bit. We launched straight into market.
That's
We
right.
know what
That's
you're
right.
talking about.
We went into the nitty gritty, and people are probably like, what are you talking about? Okay, let's back up a little. So I've been an interior designer my entire career. Went to LSU, majored in interior design. I'm from New Orleans. I'm one of 6 kids. I always think that's important because I think people from large families are gritty.
I'm one of 5. I'm the fourth. I'm the 4th of 5.
So you know what it's like.
And my wife is 5th of 5. So
Exactly.
big family vibes coming through.
And I feel like the entrepreneurial spirit, because like your parents want to give you these great opportunities and whatnot, so you're exposed to a lot. Like we went to these great Catholic schools in New Orleans, and that was like an investment on my parents' part that I've always been grateful for. At the same time, when it came to college, it was sort of like you're on your own at this point. And so,
like going to college?
well, it's like you're, at this point, most of you can get great scholarships and go to college, and we all went to LSU. And at that point, it was like, there's no leaning back on mom and dad at this point, And even growing up, it was like, the extra things that you wanted, you had to figure out a way to get it yourself.
Oh my gosh.
You know, so that's the
so
large
true.
family, gritty. I've been exposed to it. I know what I want in life, but at the same time, like, I know it's not going to get handed to me.
Yeah, and see, I grew up very similar household. My dad ran a second generation plumbing company, and my mom was a CPA, and then she retired when she had number 3, and so then she started raising us and working on the family business. So we grew up in that style of household, and my first car was a broken down one that I had to fix before I could drive it.
Well, my first car I bought myself my junior year of college, and they said, "Do you know how to drive Standard?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I didn't even know what that was. I know it was a Ford Escort stick. I was like, getting out of the parking lot. And I mean, that was it. You know, my dad actually always said, "I will not buy 6 more cars. So the cars are on you." So
I'm
perfect
about
example of
that.
something that we had to figure out how to buy ourselves.
Look, I was the first one to purchase their first vehicle, like actually purchase their car, because my siblings were driving in hand-me-down cars.
Right.
And
They
so
ran out.
They ran out by number 4, and so I was like, well, I don't want to drive, a plumbing truck, right?
Right.
So I said I want to buy my own, and so that's when I bought a '94 Jeep YJ as my first vehicle, cash money. I was so proud. It was great. So yeah, getting that grit within a large family, as you go down in kids, it's like there's not enough money for everybody to go around in some households. So you got to make do, and it gives you that inspiration to figure out ways to creatively get that revenue so you can pay for stuff you want. Like any extra things in high school we wanted to go do, oh, you got to pay for it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm mowing yards, I'm throwing hay bales, I'm working at a restaurant. I'm paying my way through it.
Yeah. It's actually a great life lesson. And I think it's even harder for people later on in life. It's like you worked so hard to make sure your kids had some of the things that you didn't have, but at the same time, you have to look back and say, like, okay, how do I get this balance between creating the next generation that's as hardworking, as I've been?
That's the $1 million question. How do you do that? When you do work so hard and you become to a certain level of success, how do you hold back
Right.
on giving your kids everything they want to ensure that they know what it takes to make it?
Totally. And I think it's, again, in being entrepreneurial is just involving your kids in your business. Like, I would definitely say I've got 3 sons, and I think they all take a lot of personal pride in Colleen Waguespack Interiors because they always see the houses that I've worked on, in Fig and Dove because they have certainly packaged items, loaded the shipments. I mean, they have put in a lot of elbow grease, all of them. My husband sort of leading the pack and showing them how important it was to help out. And then really the other thing in town that our family is the most proud of is the Emerge Center, which is an early intervention center for autism. And I led their capital campaign. But truly, like, brought my kids to that slab and said, you'll look back in life and always remember that, like, our family was a part of this. So I feel like I work a lot. My husband and I sort of just juggle everything back and forth, but we make the kids a part of it so they feel ownership in it versus like my mom and dad were always working. And that's what I hope they're going to say. I mean, can't control it, but I hope they're going to look back and say, oh, no, Fig and Dove, I built that.
Yeah, or at least they were there along the way.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't make the executive decisions to build it to what it is, but they can say, "Oh, no, I package boxes during Christmas time.
Part of it.
I can wrap a mean present." You know,
Yeah.
they learned those elements of being involved in the family business.
Definitely.
I mean, that's why I don't ever have to call a plumber unless it's above my head, and I call my dad. It's like I've been born and raised in that family. Like I know how to do certain things because of what the family business is.
Right. Totally.
So you went to LSU and
Majored in interior design.
Interior design.
Mm-hmm.
And so what
And
was
then
the
went
next
from
step?
there to DC. And I
Okay.
worked for corporate architecture firms there doing corporate interiors. And it's interesting because that might sound cut and dry, but I loved it because it was all about branding. And so it's like if you're doing the headquarters for a law firm to a nonprofit to, any big international business, in DC, it is the headquarters. And I actually worked between DC and New York for a good part of my career. And, we were always, it was the headquarters. And so you were designing an office space that felt on brand and that everybody had to come to work every day and understand who they were working for, what they stood for. Productivity was always really important. And then their outside board would come in and what did they perceive of the space. And so that was actually really neat for me as someone who's always been a bit entrepreneurial, really just to learn the business side of all those different businesses. The way a law firm sets up their offices is very different from a .com. And so for me, I was looking at all those different businesses, and that part was really interesting. And So that for me, we actually went into a bit of product design too, working for architecture firms. And so when we moved back to Louisiana, after having all three of our boys in Washington, living there for 10 years, we came back from my husband's job. And I came back here, and it was sort of like, okay, wait a second, what am I going to do now?
So you didn't come back with a job. He came back for his work.
No, we came back for his job.
Okay, and so
but we
you
also
had
came back,
now.
let's be clear, we came back, and I did work full-time the entire time in D.C., but it was quite a feat by the end. I mean, 3 kids in Washington with no family, and we were lucky enough that, like, Stephen was born and raised in Gonzales. I was born and raised in New Orleans. Our parents at that point were both, in close proximity. So for us, bringing 3 kids home was definitely, timing-wise, was the right thing to do. So we came back with a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-week-old. So, no, we were not coming back for my career. Thankfully.
You're still trying to get through the 6-week-old.
We were trying to survive at that point. So anyway, we came back for Stephen's career. But I'm a worker, and I've always been a worker. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? So I moved from corporate interiors over to residential interiors, and I worked with a firm out in New Orleans, sort of as their Baton Rouge office.
Okay.
And so that's when I started doing residential design over corporate design. I mean, corporate architecture firms, you'd have to work in a big firm, and they really are 9-to-5 jobs, and it was obvious at that phase that wasn't going to work.
Yeah, corporate workers are only able to go to the jobs from 9 to 5 whenever people are there and talk and have conversations. When you get to residential, well, I got soccer practice at 6, and then we go to dance at 7. Can you come by the house at 8 o'clock tonight?
No, residential, actually, as far as the hours, it's much better because it really is like, residential, quite frankly, it is, meet us first thing in the morning. I mean, everybody actually, nobody wants to be meeting. It's sort of a 9 to 3, as far as the hours. And then working for a firm in New Orleans was great because the business side of it was there. And really, I drove there once a week. And otherwise, I was working out of my house for 7 years. So that was nice. But that is how Fig and Dove got started. Because,
so you're working remote before remote was a cool thing to do.
Exactly. Well, I was working the upstairs of our house, and it's interesting because the kids were downstairs. But they didn't even really know I was there. I truly would, go in the back end of the house and go up these stairs. There was really only one bedroom, bathroom, and closet up there. So truly, they wouldn't even know I was home. I'd pull in the driveway all the way back where they couldn't see me. And then just go up and work from my office. It worked out great. I loved the era of working from home. That was actually great. But so anyway, Fig and Dove, where that came from, is in doing residential, which is actually completely different than corporate. Because corporate interiors, there's no throw pillars, there's no decorative items. There's one move-in day and the project's pretty much over. But residential was very decorative. And so what I didn't expect is you would do a whole house, and then at Christmas time, they would say, oh, you're going to hate our Christmas decorations. Can you help us decorate for Christmas? And I would say, oh, no. I do not decorate for Christmas. That just seemed at the time way too decorative for someone who even curtains and curtains and throw pillows and tchotchkes and stuff, I was already trying to get over that hump. Christmas decorations just was a whole nother layer that wasn't going to happen.
Furniture initially, like furniture and tables and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I was a minimalist. I mean, I came from modern corporate architecture firms. So, I mean, we were real minimal, very pared down. In the beginning, my husband had to critique it a bit and be like, you could warm this up.
He was helping you
might
with
look
the
a little
interior design.
Unfinished. This isn't, because he had the years of seeing the corporate work that I had done, and he could definitely appreciate that. He's like, people actually are allowed to have picture frames out in their houses. I'm still, a plant situation to me is still a lot. I'm like, maybe an orchid, I'm getting there, but.
Like artificial plants or just plants in general?
Just in general. It was just that whole last layer. And the funny thing is, okay, so that was a while back, but now what I can appreciate is it actually takes that last layer to make a home look finished and to give it some personality and to give it some warmth. Yeah. And so that's something that it took me 10 years to learn how to do. And then the added hump of you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where it's actually hard to find that last layer. So I was going to New York with clients, and I was going to Houston with clients, and I was going to Dallas with clients, and I was buying the last layer there. And so really the interesting thing is that it's really, Fig and Dove is the last layer. It's the last 10% that really personalizes your home and makes it feel personal to you and gives it that last layer that it needs.
So what is the meaning behind Fig and Dove?
Well, so when I started it, I had realized that like we started out as Christmas decorations, all Christmas decorations. I said,
wait.
Did we not get to that? Fig and Dove was a Christmas business.
Okay.
So,
But you just said that you were battling to not do Christmas decorations.
Right. So what happened was, so clients would ask me to do their Christmas decorations. In the beginning, I would say, oh, no, I don't do Christmas decorations.
Right. So the National might open up a Christmas store.
When do people really, if you just redid your entire house, when do you have everybody over for a Christmas party? And I would go with my husband place and I would say, okay, I did this house, but I did not do these Christmas decorations because they really didn't look like something I would do. And even he would say, well, it's sort of a disservice. Like it would seem to me if you did somebody's whole house, you should also be willing to do their Christmas decorations. So I think in 2012, 13, 14, I can't remember, but a magazine asked me to photograph a house for Christmas. And so I truly started looking for, okay, what would I put in someone's home? I was like, gosh, there's a total void in the market. But I did one house, and then other clients saw that published, and they said, well, I thought you said you didn't do that. Can you do our house? So then I said, well, maybe every year if I just finish a big house, I'll do their Christmas decorations. And so it really made me start looking at the market. And it was just more of an entrepreneurial thing where I said, there is a void in the market for just classic, well-made Christmas decorations that aren't thematic, that aren't glittery, that look great in a traditional home, that look great in a modern home, that actually you'll be excited to take out every year, that aren't such a departure from the way your house normally looks that you're just dying to put it up the day after Christmas, and that really feels special. And so that's how we started Fig and Dove. I said, there is actually a window. And so that's where Fig and Dove came from.
So what started out is to be like this exclusive Christmas decorating scene. And so you said you did it for the last big house of the year, but then they would get published. So where were these works getting published?
So different magazines. And then so the first year or two that I started Fig and Dove, what I did was, and through, I worked for Holden and Dupuy, which was a pretty nationally well-known interior design firm. And so they had a lot of great press contacts. So the first year I started Fig and Dove was truly like one photo shoot, some samples. I mean, it was definitely thought out. The website looked great. In Town Mesh did the website. I mean, it came out looking bigger than it was.
Mesh?
Yeah.
We had them on last year.
Oh, yeah. They did a great job. They did. And then Tilt still does some graphic design for us. It was actually Brendan who was at another place, but they did the graphics behind it, which I've always been thankful for because between those two, we looked big time. But we were so small. We were a binder, and people would say, how are you going to run both businesses? And I'd say, oh, well, it'll be like, the Gordon residence and the Smith residence, the Williams residence, and Fig and Dove, and it'll just be a binder. And I truly envisioned it just being a binder. I don't know what I was thinking because there's just so many reasons that didn't work. But the first year
So what year was this, though?
That was 2015.
Okay.
That's the first year the website really went up, and we're like, this is a thing, 2015.
And binders might have been a thing at the time. Yeah. So at the time, it might have made sense. So I could see how you could justify
But I'm just saying, like,
binders.
if you think about the size, that's how manageable and small I was thinking. Like, oh, well, as an interior designer, I would know that drapes would take 3 or 4 months to make, and you'd have to order the fabric and send it to your seamstress and get it made. And so I thought the same thing with stockings and tree skirts or whatnot. I said, well, people will know. They'll say, well, this is high end. I'll order it 3 to 4 months in advance. Who really orders Christmas 3 to 4 months in advance? That was ridiculous. But the other thing is, how was I really going to make this? Like when people order off a website, they think it's sitting in a warehouse and it's shipping. We were a made-to-order website. So I had bought all the fabric, and it was sitting in my seamstress in Baton Rouge, Kathy Rath, who to this day she developed my patterns. I mean, she was a saint to actually pull me through that first Christmas season. But I had all the fabric sitting in a workroom, and somebody would order stockings, and I'd call up Kathy Rath and say, we got an order. And that's really how I envisioned doing it. Of course, that was ridiculous because all the orders came in November and December when nobody wants to work on the weekends. But I was just begging people to work to fill the first season of orders every night, straight through the weekends, just literally begging everybody to just make these orders happen. So what happened was, though, website looked great. All the product was great. But when I reached out to all the press contacts that I had through the architecture firm I was working with, then every magazine picked it up. So like Architectural Digest, Garden and Gun, Southern Living, everybody did something, and everybody said, oh, nobody's doing this. We never have well-made Christmas to publish. And so we got all this great press year one. And the funny thing is, at the time, I didn't even know how to articulate what our business was or to really even describe it very well. Ashley Gordon is a good friend of mine, and at the time she was the editor of In Register magazine. And I remember Ashley, because she was a close friend, she wrote the first article on us. And I think I used Ashley's language for like everything
For
I
your
did for like
website.
a year. It's like, oh, that was well written. What did Ashley say about me? So
Your About Me page is just a snippet from the
it was just like,
In Register
look at-
article.
She described Fig and Dove beautifully. It was so well written, but In Register was the first place we were published. And so what came of the magazines wasn't a gajillion dollars in sales, but which is a good thing because we could have never actually handled them. We got enough sales to say, okay, this business has legs. What the press led to was all the stores called. And all these stores called and they said, I say called, there was no phone number. So it was like my cell phone or my email. But they would say, what is your wholesale pricing? And I would say, what is wholesale pricing? Like, as a designer, you're used to a trade discount. And a trade discount is probably like somewhere between 10 and 20%. And wholesale pricing, I never even heard the term. So I said, what is wholesale pricing? And they'd say, well, that's 50% off your retail. And I'd say, well, I could never sell you this for 50% off retail. But I knew, okay, there's a whole missing piece. Like maybe I need to go to stores. So I went through a business incubator program based out of Houston called the Circular Board. And so I went through that in the spring. And then I sort of understood. I was like, all right, I got this. I need to revamp this whole thing. And, that, was pivotal. Because at some point, that made me stop and just focus on, if I really think this is going to work, I better get a quick education and figure out how to make this work.
Yeah, because we're talking about two entirely different mindsets. You're coming from the firm background where they're kind of giving you the projects and you're going and executing on the projects. And then now you're running your own interior design firm where you're having to find the projects, coordinate with everything, put people in place. And with interior design, they want your designs.
That's key that you say that.
Right.
Because what made me do Fig and Dove, the biggest thing is that on the interior design side, I realized you can't scale me. And everybody, and this is what's very different from the corporate architecture firms going over to residential interior design. Biggest thing that I never thought about until I had done both. You can scale a corporate architecture firm. Someone can bring in the work, then they can introduce you to your team, they can pass them off. You think the principal's eyes are on it or whatnot, and there's clearly a team that's bringing in the work. In residential, if they hire Colleen, they want Colleen at the meetings, they want Colleen making decisions. They want to know that Colleen put a rubber stamp on everything, which I totally appreciate. So it's like you can't hire Colleen and say, oh, well, here's Samantha.
Right.
Thank you for hiring me. Samantha will be doing your job. That doesn't work. And so the interior design thing that really bothered me is that the residential side, I didn't see how to scale it. And to this day, I don't see where that could possibly happen. What happened with the Emerge Center and that capital campaign is the people that wrote all the really large checks that truly made it happen. I realized they all own their own business. Like that was the common denominators. They all own their own business. And I was like, well, if you can't scale Colleen Waguespack Interiors, like what can you scale? And so then I was like, I need to start something else. And that's a big reason why I didn't want my name on Fig and Dove. So you asked earlier about the name, and the name was, okay, what's a name that you could, because you had to remember it. So I'm like, what's something that you could remember at Christmas? Because we're starting out all Christmas, but I knew we were going to have to expand into something else. And I didn't know if it was going to be food or, what if we're all Christmas year round? Well, maybe we're also like your Harry and David and your salted peanuts and whatnot, and all the pecans that everybody goes. Like maybe you're like, oh, Fig and Dove is all Christmas. And so you're like, my corporate gifting's Fig and Dove. My house is decorated Fig and Dove. The team that comes in and actually like brings in the tree and does the lights. Like what if Fig and Dove is all Christmas and we just blow it out on Christmas? But I was like, at the same time, we could become year-round seasonal decorating, and that's really more what we became. And so I wanted to pick a name that could actually had the ability to turn into anything else. And then I really looked at the other names of the business that I liked, and I said, they've got two names, Williams-Sonoma, Serena and Lily, Mark and Graham. Like all the websites that I was looking at that I was like, okay, I want to be as elevated as those brands, as cohesive as those brands. I want to look like those brands. They were all two-name brands. So Dove was always to me an obvious, like symbol of hope and peace. Who cannot like a dove?
Right.
So I knew Dove was in there. And really it was just playing around with a million different words that really wouldn't keep you in one category that really got us to Fig and Dove. And it just seemed to stick.
because I think that's where some people may get hung up in starting their venture is getting the name.
Yeah.
So they get stuck on, what do we call it? What do we call it? And they
Right.
get these great ideas, these great concepts, and it's like 2 months down the line, well, we haven't come up with a name yet, so we can't do anything.
Oh, well, I have a concept sheet. And the original name was, it was like capital D. This is like the day that I just typed up. What would I do if I decided to do this? Capital D, small I, large V, I-N-E. Divine Designs. Horrible. But I thought maybe the vine, and thank the Lord that that's not. That was just my first concept page, and I still have it, but it was a terrible name.
Oh, you should post
Divine. Mm-mm.
You should like put that like is that hanging in your store somewhere?
No. But you know, our first stocking, like it was really cool because the graphic design firm actually like took our patterns and like, you know, the big thing for me was the right shape of a stocking. We started out with a stocking because I was like, the thing about Pottery Barn and Williams-Sonoma and all those brands, you know, to some extent they cost a little bit less than us, but every year they change their entire look. One year they're burlap, the next year they're a Woodlands Christmas, then they're a tartan Christmas, then they're a glittery Christmas, but like they change their look every year. The difference between Fig and Dove is we're very consistent, because if you've got one kid and you buy your wife and your child a Christmas stocking, and then you have another kid 3 years later, you could rebuy all 3 stockings because now you need 4 that match. Or you can go to Fig and Dove and you can get one more stocking because it's always the same. So it's like I have to have the perfect shape and style of a stocking. Like they will always be made the same. And like what makes it better than everybody else's? So we evaluated all these different stockings and said, what's the perfect Christmas stocking? And then the funny thing is I wasn't going to even monogram them because back then I was still way more modern, way pared down. And again, thankfully, my husband Steven said, okay, I know I'm a guy. And we don't have a lot of monogram stuff. We don't have any daughters, you know, so that's the other thing is it's like the monogramming thing in our house is not that big.
A boy mom.
You know, it's a boy mom. It's a different perspective. But he said, I think if you're going to start a Christmas stocking business in the South, I think you got to monogram those. I was like, oh, really? It's the monogramming that sells them. I mean, it's what personalizes them. It's what makes it your stocking. The fact that I was even considering not monogramming stockings is crazy. And now we monogram in-house, which is really nice. But the monogramming is what took off. And that's why whenever you're starting any kind of a business like this, you really have to say, it's not about what I wanted to do. It's sort of like what's resonating with our audience and with our customers and what are they buying? And the things that they aren't, you have to say, that isn't working. And I'm quick to say, off with that. Put it on sale. Let's get rid of it. What is working? So we started out Christmas. We moved into thoughtful gifting, which actually we've done really well with that. But the truth is like if Christmas has made us, the front door is making us now. Like the front door decor has been great for us.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, the South has its own taste in everything.
Right.
So naturally they're going to have their own taste in stockings.
Right.
Even if it is a boy household.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before about your social media followings.
Right.
So you've got your interior design page and you have your Fig and Dove page. And you said your interior design page has a stronger male presence.
No, it has more males than Fig and Dove has.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay. Okay. I was about to say, I'm very
I'd have to work out a lot more. Just spend a lot more time on my personal appearance if I was. No, I was just saying that it's interesting because we always look at our audience. And Fig and Dove is probably 95% female as far as our followers, where the CWI side is higher. And probably because I work on, honestly, when you work on a home, typically you spend either more time with the husband or more time with the wife. One person sort of leads the project, but I would definitely say it's as often the male as it is the female. Just one person seems to care about the house more and say, I'm taking this on. And I'm working with the men as often as I'm working with the women on home projects. When it comes to Fig and Dove, I think because it is more decor and gifting, we just have a much stronger women following.
So when you started the actual product development, I mean, how did you even know where to look, who to call, did you have a sewing background? You know how to make these stockings?
No, again, Kathy Rath, who I probably owe for the rest of my life. No, I had no sewing background. I mean, truly, the graphic design firm, I gave them exactly one, and I can draw. I can draw by hand and I can draw on the computer. So the truth is I can draw anything in CAD, but how someone else was going to execute it, she came up with my patterns and she figured out how to make them. And, but no, I mean, again, the whole entrepreneur thing is you just pick up the phone and start calling people. And I will say, working in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, all the women that are working for me, and we're just happen to be an all-women business, but there is no one to poach employees from because there's no Serene and Lily next door or Williams Sonoma or Front Gate. So it's really just gritty people who are like, we don't know how to do any of this. So there's as many people that haven't worked out working with us who have. And the common factor is we're not going to sit at your desk and tell you how to do any of this because we actually don't know ourselves. But we have an idea.
Yeah.
And it's probably a good idea. And if you're one of the ones that works out and works well with us, you just, I have a friend that's in Houston and she used to work for this firm and I'll call her, or you Google it. I mean, it's all out there somewhere. You just have to start picking up the phone and calling people. And I say picking up the phone and calling people because that doesn't work as often now because nobody picks up random phone numbers. But,
yeah, I stopped picking up random phone numbers a long time ago.
You usually have to message them, Instagram. It has to happen a few different ways before they're like, okay, this is out. I'll take this. But the nice thing too about going to market and going to different entrepreneurial conventions and things like that is you get to know all these other people around the United States that own businesses. And generally, especially us moving into this Christmas category, we really haven't had strong competitors anywhere. So our friends
even
that
with Amazon?
No. I mean, the funny thing is our stocking holders we used to sell on Amazon. We actually, Amazon's a funny thing. We were doing really well on it. And then we changed accounts and tried to upload a new account. It never worked. And it's funny. I mean, until you said Amazon, I was like, hey, we used to sell on Amazon. We don't even sell
you haven't gotten back on
anymore.
Amazon yet?
But no, no. I mean, we're not. Now that I think about it.
You're not planning on it?
No, we would. It's just that once everybody gets in the office every day and it's just like how much you can accomplish in X amount of hours and what's at the top of your priority list. And now that I think about it, about a year or so ago, it was really bothering me. And I kept saying last year before Christmas, but guys, why didn't we get back on Amazon? And now I'm again, there are things that are really successful at a time. And as soon as that business figures out how other people are making their money, they kind of squash you. And Amazon, what it takes to make it on Amazon, we're not really interested in that.
Yeah. Interested more that the local element of what Baton Rouge and Louisiana has to offer.
Well, we sell all 50 states.
Okay.
All day, every day. Yeah. No, we're selling everywhere.
So
our direct-to-consumer is everywhere. And that's actually my favorite thing. We're on Shopify. Everybody's on Shopify. It's just an app on your phone. And every single sale, the first thing I do is scroll to see what city. Because you're like, oh, Dearborn, Michigan. How did they know about us? So really for me, and then every single night I look at the top cities. Because Shopify will category at night how many people on your website and by what city. And like last week one day, and if I think it's interesting, the girls and I will screenshot it and circle it and send it around at night. But like last week, one day it was Chicago. And I was like, oh, that's cool. How did Chicago take the lead today? No idea. But for me, the most exciting part is your first year that you start a business, you rely on friends and family.
Right.
And maybe even a little bit the second year. But the truth is you can't build a business on friends and family. And it always makes me relieved to see how many cities we're selling in right online because we're not relying, even though the Baton Rouge community has been great to us.
So do you ever do like a compare and contrast between your social media followers and then where people are buying from based on cities? Or does Shopify even give you the ability to see how people were directed to your website?
Absolutely. Every single night. If somebody blogs about us, if a magazine writes. So the interesting thing about magazines and getting put in print, that's great. And people do see you, but you can't track that because you can't track a magazine.
Right.
However, that magazine puts us on their social media. That's even better for us because it goes straight from their social media to our website. And we actually can tell exactly where they came from. If somebody talked about us on a blog, Shopify shows you how many people you got from that blog. But a magazine, you have no idea. We can tell, though, like Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles has been great to us since the day we started. They published us every single year. And always Atlanta's been strong for us. Houston's always been very strong from us day one. That was one of the first places, though, I was going out and actually doing pop-ups and different types of Christmas shows or whatnot. Houston. So that was great because we started in Houston strong. Houston's always been probably top 2 cities in sales. And then now the good thing is, Dallas, San Antonio, Texas is. The other thing that I heard when I started this business that totally made sense was when you start a business, you want to be everywhere. You're like, oh my God, I want people in California buying for us. But the truth is, California, we do get California sales, but that definitely never falls into our highest category. We're not really a California brand. We're a Southern brand. So you grow your business at home and you grow it out from there. So the truth is, Louisiana, all over Louisiana, Birmingham, all of Texas, Nashville. We do great. But the funny thing is even like DC on down, that whole quarter, we're doing really well there too.
They followed you from your original stomping ground.
Yeah, so it's like you realize like that is where there is an appreciation for things. And there's definitely a little Southern bent to all of our stuff. The other thing I want to say about the interior design thing that's been great is everybody's like, oh, how are you doing both businesses? But the nice thing is one informs the other. I mean, where do the fabrics come from? Where do the ideas come from? We're working on these homes and you see what you couldn't find for their homes. And you're like, wait, I know how to make that now. I know how to design that. I know where to get that.
It's like you're missing that one element.
Yeah.
And you say, where can I get it from?
Yeah.
Oh, myself. Duh.
Exactly. Well, if it's readily available and somebody's already doing it, I'll just buy it from them.
Yeah.
And I do want to say this because it's a Baton Rouge podcast, is that we support local as much as humanly possible. And when we go to market, because we do, there's Fig and Dove branded products, but we buy other people's brands that we sell. And there's a whole vetting process for what would make it Fig and Dove and what would make it a good companion to our collection. Because the other thing is, I think when I started this business, what was daunting is I felt like I had to design and make every single thing on the website. But then when you go to do a photo shoot, there's got to be all these other products. And then everybody's asking about the other stuff. Well, I love the placemats that you put in that. So you're selling item A, but you got to style it with B and C, but they want to buy B and C too. So you're crazy not to sell B and C too. So what we do at market, though, is we're very conscious about not selling what other stores in Baton Rouge sell, and then also using items in our styling and in our social media from other local stores and being really clear. Hey, we got this at Custom Linens, and we combined it from Fig and Dove, and it made a great local gift if you're staying at someone's beach house this weekend. Yeah. So, for me too, we've been hosting it with our new office, like pop-ups for other brands. So it's not, the fun of it for me has been getting to know all these businesses and how it works and how to make things, but also like watching your friends' brands grow alongside yours. Because now, like going to market, those are like your camp friends. You know them. You're watching how their business is doing. We all call around and text around like, oh my God, Instagram stopped. What happened? Well, you're doing Reels. Well, we call each other advice. When shipping rates have been changing, we get on conference calls and go through shipping rates across the United States. Well, are you on this platform? Did you try this? It's nice to have brand friends. That's sort of been fun.
Yeah, and then you can also bounce ideas off of each other.
Absolutely.
If they're not in the same market, or if they are, how can we work together?
Yeah. Or you do product collaborations. Everybody wanted little small stockings from us. I didn't want to produce the little small stockings. Get to know a friend who does little tiny needlepoint stockings. We do some designs for her, and then we have a collaboration. So then you're sort of the added value of getting to know somebody else's brand through your brand.
And I think that within Baton Rouge is so special because everybody's trying to figure out who can I talk to collaborate, to do something, to get on their socials so we can get on our socials so we can create content.
Right.
And then how do we figure out a way to tag the products in the post so people can easily click on it and buy it?
What's funny, because what we've found is, once you get over the curve of social media, you're like, okay, I got this. But the truth is, it is daunting if you're not in that world. So what we found is people ask us to do it, and then we create this great contact, and we're like, they didn't even use it.
Yeah.
And then what we've realized is they actually don't know how.
Yeah.
So one thing that we've gotten, better about, like even today, we had done a video on the interior design side. Somebody actually sent us these great tables for our office, another brand friend from market. And she's like, I'm terrible at social media. Will you do some content for me? I said, sure. And then she messaged me and said, okay, I don't know how to share it. And I said, okay, we're going to do a Dropbox for you. And you can connect with Monty in our office and she'll give you some tips. Because we've realized too is that, you can create the content, but like, if you're just getting your toe into social media, you're not even sure what to do with it.
Well, then it comes down to the balance, right? So you as the business owner need to be working on the new designs, selling, production, etc., that you may not have enough time to devote to posting or sharing on your own social media. So when you're providing this collaborative content for other people and giving them a Dropbox link, they are under the same impression you are. I've got to get the business running. I've got to keep sales going.
Right.
I've got to ship out. I've got to box up. I've got to do other stuff. I don't have time to post. So while it's great and it sits in people's inboxes, what happens is they don't know when to pull the trigger on getting somebody on their team who can do that.
That's
to free
100%
up
correct.
their time.
Well, you never think you
so
can afford it.
Yeah.
I think the common thread is you never think you can afford it.
Yeah.
And like, when do you actually feel like you can start paying someone else? And I do have this advice, is that I've never done well. And I realize about myself because I've had a lot of failures in the hiring arena. And then we've got some great successes in our team. And I've realized, especially as an entrepreneur who feels like I work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, it's starting people out part-time.
Yes.
Is 100% the only time we've ever found success. So it's like you start them out, 20 hours, they go up to 35, next thing is 40, and then we were laughing the other day because everybody that actually really works on our team feels like they're working about 60. Nobody, they were like a 40-hour week, Colleen. Like,
That's
when did we
part-time.
ever work a 40-hour week? But the thing is that where I don't do well is starting somebody out full-time. So to me, it's like if you start somebody out part-time and then you say, okay, number one, you got to figure out if the personalities are going to be a fit. That's huge. I mean, to me, that's actually the biggest piece is like the personality fit. The second thing is it's like if they can, if what they bring to the table pays for itself, then I can increase their time. And then we can add another person. And as long as they can manage that person, then we can expand our team. And that's why Fig and Dove is able to grow. It's because it's not the Colleen Waguespack show. It's got its own legs now. It's got its own look. It's got its brand identity, which I love. And it's not really reliant on everything coming from me.
Yeah, and you get to that level where now you can scale it to a variety of products, a variety of designs that people aren't coming and saying, "Oh no, I want Colleen's design."
Yeah,
Like I want her design only. They're coming saying, "No, I want Fig and Dove's design." You've created this own identity that's housed within the company that now people are flocking to that. Which, I mean, for an interior designer, the only way you can scale is to charge more and do more expensive homes. And so you may do 2 or 3 homes a year, but you're making your revenue because of how much you're having to charge. But you can't get to the masses like you can with a Fig and Dove product company.
you can't. I mean, you can't. And the other thing is you can't control construction, which I think is like the hardest industry to be in.
Yeah.
You can't control the time of these projects. You can't, a job that you think is going to be great is great. But when a great job goes from an 18-month job to a 3 to 4 year job, it's still great for the client. But if you look at profitability, your fees were really based on a much shorter time frame. It's not profitable for you. And that's sort of the frustrating thing is because you can't, it's no one's fault. It just is what it is.
So have you found yourself leaning more towards Fig and Dove over the interior design?
Well, it's funny. No, I mean, I still love the interior design. And actually, Fig and Dove has actually helped me get bigger and better projects because one, so like Garden and Gun, perfect example. One year they called, Colleen, what do you have new? We had a stocking collaboration we'd done with Amanda Talley, who's actually from Baton Rouge, but she's in New Orleans now. She's an artist. So we send them that, and they say, okay, well, we want to shoot it in New Orleans. We need to find a house. And I said, oh, I have a house. I just finished in New Orleans. And I sent them the pictures. And they said, no, we love the house. Let's do 2 separate things. We'll shoot your stockings. Don't worry about it. Just send us your stockings. We'll shoot your stockings. And then in the spring, they shot this house for me. So it's like, I think in most of the publications, Fig and Dove has given me a better avenue to get in much bigger national publications. I think Colleen Waguespack in Baton Rouge, honestly, magazines are going to 4 issues a year. It's been harder and harder and harder to get in there, but who can shoot Christmas? I can. And who can style at Christmas? I can. So like the magazines are saying, and they don't have the budgets anymore. Magazines are getting more successful on the social media side and figuring out how to monetize that. But there's definitely in the last, 3 to 4 years been oh God, no one's advertising here. And I think they're coming back. They're totally coming back.
You think so?
Oh, they're totally coming back, but they're coming
print?
back. Their print's getting better, but they're figuring out how to monetize on the social media side to keep the print alive. And the print is still really important because to me, as a designer, if you look at a house on social media, you see one picture of the kitchen from one angle, and you're like, oh wait, what does the rest of the house look like? And only in a magazine can you see every room of that person's house.
So what about 3D tours of the house?
I love those.
So how does that come into the equation when you're looking at a magazine that's a still shot? And they're getting, to be honest, they're getting them from the best angle possible.
Right. Well, that's why there's only certain houses. Because, when you're on a photo shoot, even in a house that's fabulous, when you're on a photo shoot, you look behind you and you're like, oh, it's a shit show back there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my God, we could never take a picture. So it's funny. You just have to like, as nice as the house, all your stuff and all your clutter and all your extra stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can only get these like one angle great shots. Or you're moving all the kids' stuff out of the way and that's all shoved in a corner. And so there's definitely a benefit from shooting a 3D walkthrough. Every single thing's got to be perfect. To do a 3D walkthrough, the family generally has to be out of town because you need 2
Yeah.
days to get it ready, move all the stuff, hide the stuff. You got to put it all back.
Or doing it like on move-in day when they get everything in the house before they've slept a night in the house.
Yeah, but nobody's ready on move-in day. With lead times these days, there's no such thing as move-in day. Actually, that's the reason I was saying the interior design site's hard. There's no such thing. There used to be a move-in day. There's no move-in day. Things take a year or so to come in. You know, I mean,
if not
the
more.
labor shortages, the shipping shortages, the product shortage. I mean, they're everywhere and they're real and they're causing havoc. For us on Fig and Dove's side, our direct to consumer is truly a stronger side of the business. Wholesale 100% helps us with volume, but your profit clearly is in direct to consumer. Same items, but your profit's much bigger. But the benefit of direct to consumer versus selling to stores. So if I sell a store in January and they place a big order, I've got to produce it. It has to be there for Labor Day. Christmas items have to ship out right after that. Well, I sold something in January that I haven't produced yet. If there's a shutdown in China, if there's freight issues, so this year, I mean, certain of my products, we're going to do a break even on wholesale in one collection because I'm FedExing it, across the ocean, which you don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's the only way I'm going to meet the deadline. So you
like,
don't know
for the
that in
sake of
January.
future sales, yeah.
Exactly. And your reputation and meeting deadlines, at that point you say, okay, on that collection, we're just going to break even, but just get it into the United States.
Yeah.
So when you're not selling to stores, it doesn't matter. If the collection doesn't show up, I'll sell it a year later. I don't want to do that, but I can do that. And I've done that before.
Yeah, because you're not going to push it if you don't have it.
Exactly. You don't have to sell if it's not here.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, even I have a hard time because I buy certain things at market and then it comes in and it doesn't look like that one sample that store showed me. And then I'm like, oh, when it shows up. And then I look at it and I say, well, I don't really have a choice. I'm going to go with it. It's like, it doesn't matter what the sample looked like. This is what we've got. This is what we're selling. Make it look good and move on.
Like what do we have here
today
in the store that we can push out and put across social, website, what have it, and what are we waiting on? I mean, that's just, I think that's been the biggest thing for 22 and probably the latter part of 21 was what do we actually have in our possession that we can sell?
Right.
When beforehand, like you said, we had Southern Martian here a couple of weeks ago, back in July, and he was like, oh, it's a nightmare because we are 12 months out ordering products
that's right
that we won't see till 12 months. So we're having to go through the design process, get everything finalized, and then place those orders because we know it's going to take that long to get here. Whereas we can't start pushing it until we have it. You've got construction companies like Centurion, they won't put a single nail in a board unless they have every single thing on site ready to go.
That's right.
Because if they have one thing missing, Benny's Car Wash, they order multiple just to make sure if something breaks, they've got it because they can't be a day shut down waiting for 6 weeks to get a product.
Right.
And so it's the same situation when you come to retail. You've got to have what you need to sell in store.
But that's the nice thing about social media because, when I started this business, it was, and this is only 7 years ago, but we were shooting professional photography. Everything was so well done. Everything was so well thought out. And these days you realize a little bit more laid back approach, just literally holding up the item and talking about it and showing everybody it in 3 dimension and proportionally seeing a person holding it or standing next to it, or even though it's not perfect and there might be sound in the background and somebody might start cutting the grass when I'm tying the resash, it doesn't really matter. But something comes in. So it's interesting, that LSU resash came in, 5 minutes before I walked out the door to come here. And I said, oh, this is great. Local show. I'll bring the LSU resash with me, but it's that's how fast you can do things and that's why, we built out in March an on-brand office space, which was really cool for me because from coming from that background and then you're working in your guest bedroom, that was fine. But then we were at LSU Innovation Park, which was a godsend because that saved our shipping rates, was just unbelievable.
They have
we
great
office
shipping
there
rates
for,
over
oh,
there.
you can't beat it. 3 years, if you're in e-commerce, that was fabulous. So the space didn't look on brand. I kind of like to say it felt entrepreneurial. So it just reminded us to be gritty and know who we were and to not waste any money. But at the same time, it didn't give us a backdrop for the daily social media. And in March, we built out a truly on-brand office with a space for Colleen Waguespack Interiors and a space for Fig and Dove and then communal space in between. And that's been a game changer because all day, every day, you know, the other thing is I'm not the only one that talks on our social media and shoots stuff. I'm always like, everybody in the office should get in on it. And it should be like, hey, we know the Fig and Dove team, not, oh, I know Colleen.
Right. You have to put your personal brand to the side in order to see your company succeed sometimes. Not every time, you know, depending on what it is. If you've got the brand is you have to do that. But if you're looking to get that scalability where people aren't expecting to see Colleen when they walk in, you've got to figure out a way to do that. And I think that's the best way to go.
Absolutely. And it is funny because the girls in the office say that they go places and people are like, wait, I know you, you know, and that's good. They should.
Absolutely.
In the beginning, I was petrified to speak on social media, which is funny because I'm a talker, obviously. But the idea of like just turning on the thing and saying, all right, Colleen, start talking about this product. I was stuck on like, how do you even start it? Like, what do you say?
This is a
hi, everybody.
This is fabric.
Yeah.
Like,
Who's everybody? And they would say, if I say good morning, they're like, it's not morning. Remember, we don't know when we're putting this up. It's not morning, Colleen. You're like, oh, yeah, it's not morning. Okay. So, yeah.
Then you get to that point where it's like, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. You know,
Right,
it's like
right.
you got to say all those things
Exactly.
whenever you post something on social, or you get generic to hi.
Yeah. So the good thing is I'll say, I mean, we had just styling the flowers in the kitchen thing. And one day they said, Colleen, a local florist sent over some flowers and wanted us to do some like product styling. But I physically could not get to the office. I'm like, well, I have this meeting. I've got this. I'll never get there. So I was like, y'all just do it yourselves. And they did it. And they did a great job. And I don't but I mean, that got hundreds of thousands of views. And I wasn't in it. And I was so happy because I was like, see, it's really not
That's all it takes.
about me. It's the brand.
Yeah, and you've got it to that point where the brand pushes itself without you having to be there.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, because then you can focus on
Even though I'm there a whole
everything else.
I'm there a whole lot.
I think as entrepreneurs, you never really step back when you want to step back. And you always end up stepping back like 10 years later than you thought you would because you can't let go of that level of control. I mean, I know I face it all the time where it's like, I still need that level of control. Either it's the final sign off or it's doing this and that. It's like you need that element of, no, it still comes down to me. And then letting go is like what you saw. When you let go, sometimes it works out to your benefit.
Definitely.
So as we start to wrap up the show, we have a set list of questions we like to ask everybody. Very
Okay.
hard-hitting questions. So the first one is, what is something you did as a kid you wished you could still do today?
Okay, well, I probably should have looked into what these questions were ahead of time. What's something as a kid that
What is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
I wish I could eat Bluebell ice cream every single day. But you know, there's that problem of social media. My whole family loves Bluebell ice cream. If there's a new flavor, the whole family texts out that there's new flavor. Like, we love Bluebell ice cream. But at this stage of life, I actually can't eat Bluebell ice cream every single night. But if I could, I would eat Bluebell ice cream every single night.
I am right there with you. Bluebell is like the end-all, be-all when it comes to ice cream. And if you think any different,
There's something wrong with you.
we'll talk.
My dad
Like-
says there's a little bit of salt in it, and that's what makes it. Like, you can't have something sweet without a little bit of salt in it too.
You got like that's the I think it's Counter Space BR or something like that. They put a little bit of salt on their chocolate chip
no,
cookies.
those are phenomenal.
It is like
Phenomenal. Okay, actually, it's a perfect example. When I give a gift, like I had some friends move from here to Houston, so we took this really neat dish from Fig and Dove, and I went to Counter Space, and I filled them with their chocolate chip cookies, and I sent it with my son who was going to visit them in Houston, because if I give something from Fig and Dove, it's funny. People are like, people love Fig and Dove, Colleen. I'm like, I know, but it feels self-serving. So I try to do something local and something from us whenever I'm giving a gift.
yeah, and you get that element of your store and where your store's from and what you represent.
Right.
And I mean, you can't go wrong with sweets. Like,
I know. Well, those cookies.
She came on the show I think 2 years ago and brought those cookies, and I think I ate the whole box while we were recording.
Well, you know, she was so smart. She sent them to Steven's office. When he first opened his new office building, as a gift, she sent him. And I saw him on his social media. And I literally said, what are those cookies? Bring me one home. And so he
don't
brought
you
it
eat all
to
of
him.
them?
And then one of our sons was graduating, so I ordered him for his graduation party. And then I've ordered him ever since. I was like, that was the smartest thing to send him to Steven's office.
Oh, it's incredible. And now they're on, I think, right off of Jefferson by corporate. So now I'm like,
Right.
I am 30 seconds from them.
Right,
It's
scary.
deadly. It's deadly now. So what are 3 lessons you've learned along the way? I mean, you've done a lot of stuff with the Emerge Center. You've done a lot of stuff with Colleen Waguespack Interiors, Fig and Dove. What are kind of 3 lessons on your journey you've learned?
Well, the first one is involve your family in anything you do. Like, just if you want to raise a family along with your career, do it together. That would be the first one. The next one would be, be philanthropic always, because the truth is it's funny. It's something that you want to do for other people, and then you have no idea how rewarding it is for yourself. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you, how fortunate you are in so many different ways. But it's part of our whole culture and our society, and we can't exist without it. And so I'm real clear that mine's autism, and for our family, it's the Emerge Center. And people ask me to do other things, and I say, I just want to do one thing really well, because you can't stretch yourself so thin. But I think everybody should have a cause, whatever that is. It should be personal to you, and you should make a go at it, and make that part of your family's mission and your mission. And you'll never regret spending the time being philanthropic. And the third one is really important. It came from my grandmother. And we actually take a whole nother podcast to talk about year 3, because it was a disaster, like a complete disaster.
We'll have to do a round 2.
Set up to be a great success and turned out to be a great disaster. And, on the outside, we looked really successful year 3. And everywhere I go to these Christmas parties, everybody say, "You're killing it. You're in Nordstrom and you're in Neiman's." And I thought, I'm about to kill myself. I was like, so I called my grandmother and said, I don't even know how to respond when people say you're killing it, because we've had the worst year. And I was pulled into so much debt that year just to keep the business alive. It was terrible. I gotten totally screwed over by a manufacturer. But back to what was so important about it is my grandmother said, well, the problem is you're counting pennies, Colleen. And if you're just looking at the dollars as far as did I have a successful year, you're never going to make it in life. And she said, look at all these publications and all these great things they've said about you. Look at the people that you've employed, whose salaries you've actually paid. And your business is still grown, even if it isn't financially successful right now. And she said, so if you're going to grow a business, you better stop counting your pennies. And I was really glad she said that, because she's right. We had a lot of things that went so well that year. And we had just, one manufacturer that had just really screwed us. And so financially, it was a terrible year, and we should have had a great year. Yeah. But she was right. So now, ever since then, I've remembered to stop and pause and say, oh my gosh, we're in this magazine, or this store picked us up. We would have died to be there, 3 years ago. That's big. So we do birthday celebrations in the office. And I say birthday celebrations, birthdays for Fig and Dove, because every year oh my God, we made it another year. We're still here.
We're still here.
That's big, So we try to pause when something good does happen and say, this is great. We always wanted this and we got it. As an entrepreneur, it's just really easy to check the boxes and just keep on going, because there's always what's next, and we could always be bigger, and we could always grow faster. I think we've grown at a very comfortable rate. It hasn't been a scary rate, but it's definitely been a clear stair step every single year. And I think that's worked well, again, for raising a family and building a business at the same time.
And you have to find that balance and know what tangible growth you can handle personally and within your family.
That's right. That's right. Both are very, exactly. Because you can't have the family quit on you while you're growing the business.
Yeah,
otherwise, that wouldn't have been worth it either.
I mean, if the family quits, you got nothing left. No. But, going to the doing one thing and doing one thing right, I mean, that is so very true, not only in picking a cause to go with, but also within your business. I mean, one of our sponsors of the show, Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, One Love, right? They didn't expand their menu to have so many different items. It was just focused on one product, doing it well, and same thing with your philanthropical views. Pick one thing and go all in. You can't save every person every time, but you can save one person most of the time.
That's right.
So I love that. What do you love about Baton Rouge?
I've absolutely loved raising my children here. And it's funny because I'm from New Orleans, and, New Orleans people love New Orleans. And I never saw myself. I went to college here, and I loved every bit of college. And I met my husband here, which I've always been so thankful for. But, then we went to D.C. for 10 years, and I just assumed we would go to New Orleans. And then Katrina came, and it was sort of like, well, New Orleans is sort of not an option. And we had one more kid in Washington, and my husband said, I've got a job opportunity in Baton Rouge. I had never even thought of coming to Baton Rouge. And when I came here, like I said earlier, with a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 6-week-old, only to find out, very quickly after getting here that our second son was on the autism spectrum. And the community, see, I'll get choked up. But the community was so good to us. And everybody raised that kid like it was their own. And that's been invaluable.
Yeah. Knowing that if you call somebody, if you need anything, we've seen that through natural disasters. We've seen that through everything. People here are willing to give you the shirt off their own back just so you can make sure you're okay.
It's totally true. It's interesting because I couldn't even say the word autism. I'm crying just talking about it, and Christopher's doing great. He's 17, but I couldn't even say the word at first. And it's interesting because, again, Ashley Gordon and Ralph McAllister came to me and said, Colleen, will you be on the cover of a magazine? And they said it'd be you and Christopher. And I said, you can't use the word autism. I'm like, and then the interesting thing at the same time, Baton Rouge Speech and Hearing Foundation was asking me to do their capital campaign. And again, I was sort of like, there are lawyers on your board. Why me? And they said, because you know the cause. You've walked the walk. You can talk the cause, Colleen. The need is here, and the community will support it, but we need a spokesperson. And, you can talk about it. Obviously, not without crying. So maybe that's
right.
how we raised the money. Maybe everybody in the room couldn't handle the tears. But it was a God thing because, I was exhausted at the time. Mentally, emotionally, we were worn down. My husband was working a ton. We certainly didn't have the money to put behind a cause. But what I love about what Rolf and Ashley did was I said, well, I guess if I don't put myself on the cover of a magazine with Christopher and come out, how am I going to raise the money? If I can't even say the word and I can't even put my name behind the cause. So I love that issue of InRegister because it came out and it said Spectrum of Hope. And it was perfect.
Yeah. It was amazing to see what was done when the community banded together.
Totally.
For a cause.
And I will love Baton Rouge for the rest of my life for that.
Yeah. And I think you're just one of the many people that go through life with situations like this. And when they reach out to their community and they feel they feel like they're being received by them, and they know that
Absolutely.
love is there. That's what Baton Rouge is really
and
all
every
about.
School, therapist, babysitter, cheerleader, you name it, they took Christopher on. And everywhere Christopher goes, people know him. And we could have never done that in Washington, D.C. And so it's so interesting because you look at my husband's career and you look at my career, and the truth is, it could have been very, very successful in different ways if we'd have stayed in a bigger city. And I will never regret coming home.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason, and where y'all are at today is proof of that. So for the final question, what can I do to help you?
You need to go buy something from Fig and Dove.
I'm sure my wife is going to handle that. When you say you deal with the husbands and the wife, it's my wife Charlotte is the one that's going to handle all of that.
No, I want to thank you so much for having me on this show, because it is networking and getting to know people and knowing what's available. I think the hardest thing for anybody building a business, and what's so great about your podcast, is the truth is, you should start local in everything possible. I'm going to say this out loud just in case somebody's listening, but we're always struggling with packaging. Boxes, branded boxes. And I always say, my husband, Law B, is the manufacturing association for the state. But who is making branded cardboard boxes? Why are we buying them from Uline?
In Baton Rouge?
Yeah.
Or in the okay.
In the state.
Okay.
We were getting them from New Orleans.
Okay.
That company was bought out by a national company. But I was like, I can't believe we can't buy cardboard boxes. Somebody has, but there probably is. But sometimes there's a lot of things you can find on the internet. There's a lot of things you can call. There's some really basic things generally that I'm always surprised it's hard to find. And really, it's a networking thing. You tell people where your pain points are. I know somebody. Well, I did. You do that. We have a great e-commerce group that meets, and we have a lunch at Bocage tomorrow, and it's fabulous. It's The Backpacker. It's David Fluker Farms.
Love me some David Fluker.
It's a lot of great local brands, and they were so kind to take me on because I was way smaller than all of those guys. But, golfballs.com, unbelievable resource. So, I took my team there to tour because I said, we're not there, clearly.
Wait, they're based out of here?
Lafayette. Fabulous tour.
We need to talk
100%
after the
worth
show.
it. Tom Cox is great.
We need to
His
talk
wife's
after the
great.
show.
But what I'm going to say about this, I'll give you our list. I'll give you my list of who's in our e-commerce group, because actually all of them might be interesting.
And I know David. So when you see David tomorrow, tell him you were on the show yesterday.
Dude, they're all a great group. Like I'll give you the e-commerce list because they're all interesting. But I will say and it's funny, I think David Fluker is sort of I think he's the one who spearheaded. He's the one who invited me and was like, Colleen, you are at this in sales, aren't you? And he gave me a dollar number. I'm like, not quite. He's like, okay, we'll let you in.
I want to be. We're almost
I hope
there.
So. Can't wait to celebrate with you. And we are. It's all men. They're all looking at the website and they're like, you sell $450 stockings? We do. And I'll say this, when I first started, we were really expensive. Now, with volume, your price point gets better.
Yeah, you get that's the fun of it. Under control.
Yeah, in the beginning, that's why our audience was this big, because our prices were so high. And even my dad said, Colleen, I'm an attorney in New Orleans, and this stuff's expensive. I can't even see how my attorney friends are going to be able to afford your stuff. And he said that year one, and I said, Dad, volume. Like, if we get volume, our prices will come down. Right now, I'm manufacturing one piece at a time.
Yeah.
You're
in your hand.
But we've gotten there, in volume in some things.
Yeah, I get that. So, well, I mean, I loved having you on. I love the story.
No, thank you so much.
Fantastic.
I totally appreciate it.
I've listened to you on a few shows, and we got connected through Louisiana Ladies podcast.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible story that needs to be told as many times as possible. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on and sit down and share it with our audience and our listeners wherever they are.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody else, for listening or watching, whatever platform you're consuming us on. I appreciate it. I know the guests do as well. If you're looking for something to decorate your house with, or you're looking for an interior designer, check out Fig and Dove. Check out Colleen Waguespack. We're going to link their websites in the show notes, so it should be really easy to find them, as well as on our social media pages. Just go check them out. we're in Q4, y'all. We're 3 months away till 2023. I know it's hard to say and hard to believe, but time is flying, and it'll sneak up on you before you know it. So get ahead of yourself and get all that stuff done, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Patty G Show. I mean, they're going to find out from their Shopify website anyways, but just put that in the little comments where you heard about them. I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. So thank y'all so very much, and thank you to the amazing sponsors that make this show possible each and every week. Hear a little bit more about them right now.
Sell your home for a $399 flat fee with Falaya. No, seriously. Falaya will list your home on the MLS and help you get all the way to the closing table for as little as a $399 flat fee. Our online platform is insanely easy to use and will save you thousands. If you're thinking about selling your home in 2022 and want to keep more of your hard-earned equity in your pocket, you need to check out Falaya. Falaya, real estate reimagined.
Thank you all so very much for listening to this episode of the Patty G Show, brought to you by Government Taco. They're located on the corner of Government Street and Jefferson Highway. Jay is always slinging up a new taco of the month, so if you're a frequenter to Government Taco, let us know in the comments what you thought about this month's taco of the month. If you're not a frequenter, maybe trying out this month's taco might just convert you. Big thanks over to them at Government Taco for making the Patty G Show possible.
Imagine taxiing on a plane looking toward the end of the runway. It seems so far away, it's even hard to see it. And that's what the concept of retirement probably felt like when you were in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, way far in the distance, not visible or even a concern. But as you turn 50, something happens. Retirement suddenly seems like something real, something not too far away. In your 50s, you are rolling down the runway. Retirement is getting closer and closer, faster and faster, weeks and months zipping by. But are you even ready for a successful takeoff to retirement? Fear not, there's still runway left. But the time is now. Time to make progress and time to get a plan. The Runway Decade will help you get organized, get energized, and give you the direction you need to take off to your desired retirement. The Runway Decade, building a pre-retirement flight plan in your 50s.
Thank you to Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge for making this show possible. Nick Pintus is a past guest. We love having him on. Listening to him talk about the culture they have over at Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge is really an incredible thing to hear. How they treat not only their employees, but every customer that walks through the door. You are more than just a number to them. They're going to give you that white glove concierge service every step of the way. They're going to make you feel like family and take what can be a stressful time in people's life, shopping for a car. They're going to make it so enjoyable and so pleasurable. You're going to want to go back there time and time again for every new vehicle. Thank you so very much for Mercedes-Benz of making this show possible. Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau, you won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves, where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out, Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you. Thank you so very much to Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, the latest Patty G Show sponsor. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers is serving up hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy, crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, fresh coleslaw, and mouth-watering cane sauce. So y'all stop by for meetups and wind-downs, lunch breaks and dinner fixes, pre-games and after parties, or whenever your chicken finger cravings hit. I know my chicken finger cravings are hitting right now. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love. To Currency Bank, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show. If you are looking for a business bank that fosters on 3 core values, relationships, service, and technology, Currency Bank is the place for you. They pride themselves on convenient, accessible, and secure online banking resources where you can manage your account balances, initiate transfers, enroll with e-statements, and more via their online portal. Between the relationships, the service, and the technology, they are going to be that partner with your business every step of the way, regardless of what you need. Currency Bank is the bank for business owners.
Simple math, don't want a complication. Complication.